Welcome to the Hours of Service Manager Accountability Training Module, the third and final in a series on this important HSE topic and another critical piece of your development within the Pepsi Beverages New Bern organization. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to cover the following content areas: Web Portal, EHOS and EDOT, what they are, how to access, and how to use them properly. EDOT navigation, how to access, login screen, home page, HOS management, resources and links. Manager accountabilities, what managers of drivers need to know and the responsibilities of monitoring and logging driver activity. HSE resource library, important documentation that relates to the info you'll learn about in this module. So that's a high-level look at what will be covered. As a manager, you are accountable for a very important aspect of our business and the safety of employees as well as the general public in which they operate. This module is about providing awareness of your responsibilities and managing driver hours of service utilizing the e-hours of service system. We're obligated to make sure from a DOT perspective that hours are tracked, we dispatch them within the hours of service restrictions, use the paper grid log when appropriate, and hold ourselves accountable for regulatory excellence. As an organization, we must know the regulations. And as we've addressed in previous DOT training modules, if managers dispatch in breach of the hours of service regulations and fail to take corrective action, they're in violation and subject to criminal or civil prosecution or DOT fines and penalties. So it should be very clear why the information in this module is extremely important. Now let's get into the what and the how. From an S&D perspective, we have a very strong hours of service program called EDOT, and e-hours of service is a module within this. Today, our company has 15,000 drivers logging 250 million miles a year with many hours of service requirements within that. This module is about the manager's interface and the e-hours of service portal. In this training, we're going to be talking specifically about the portal and how to utilize and access the information within it. At the end of the training, you should be able to go deep into your daily, weekly, and monthly accountability and to whom the various regulations apply. We've covered this in previous modules and we'll dig deeper in this one. To quickly recap, these regulations apply to all drivers operating commercial motor vehicles with a gross weight of 10,001 pounds or more. They also apply to any vehicle involved in interstate or intrastate commerce and is transporting hazardous materials in a quantity requiring placards. For us, this means bulk, route, geo, and transport drivers, as well as MEM delivery. And they're regulated under the 60-hour, 14-hour, 10-hour, and 11-hour rules, as well as the new 30-minute break requirement. Now, let's look at the EHOS web portal and its crucial purposes. How to monitor hours of service, how to follow up on corrective action, and how to run reports on daily, weekly, and period basis. The EHOS system relies on the handheld computer and Kronos connectivity. Only handhelds with EHOS activated will result in violation tracking within EDOT. So you'll be able to see your drivers and locations within the system once it's activated. Locations can submit activation requests through the help desk or a web ticket. The activation request is available on the HSE resource library. Locations without a Kronos swipe clock cannot be activated in EHOS and must follow the paper process for managing hours of service. So, how do you access EDOT? It's really easy. Go into Internet Explorer, and from the My PepsiCo home page, select My Groups and PVC Home. Select Deliver, and then select EDOT. Just a reminder that failing to manage hours of service daily, weekly, and monthly is a violation. Now we're at the EDOT login screen, and you'll need to enter your GPID and password. If you've forgotten your password, you can have it reset by clicking on the Forgot Your Password link. If you do not currently have access to EDOT, you will need to submit an IDM request to gain access. Once in the EDOT system, you will be directed to the home page, which contains a message board, your key information source for important EDOT information like system changes, upgrades, or downtimes. It's time for a safety checkpoint. First up, to what category of vehicles do HOS regulations apply? The answer is D, vehicles with a gross weight of 10,001 pounds or more, and vehicles transporting hazardous materials requiring placards. True or false? Locations without Chronos Swipe cannot be activated in eHOS. The answer is true. These locations must follow the paper process. Now, what information will you find on the eDOT home page? The answer is D, all of the above. So, we're talking about the eDOT system. We've covered login and home page. Now let's get into the main areas. They include hours of service management, resources, and links. For the purpose of this training, we will only be reviewing the Hours of Service Management tab. When you click this tab, you can view the location summary, driver summary, or explanation tracking screens. Additionally, each screen in the system can be downloaded to Excel or printed. There are 5 key areas in the Hours of Service Management module: administration, location summary, driver summary, explanation tracking, reports. Let's begin with the administration. You will use this screen to account for your qualified CDL drivers. This tab provides driver management. You access by clicking on the Administration tab in the upper right side of your screen. You generate information by selecting your location. You only have those locations assigned to your login. Selecting the location will generate a list of all location employees. It can take up to 24 hours to see historical hours when adding new drivers. Adding drivers the day you want to use them will not produce accurate hours of service data. The list of employees on the left-hand side include all employees in your facility. You can move active drivers into the driver list by clicking on the employee's name in the employee list, or you can select multiple employees by holding down the Control key. Click on the Add button in the middle of the screen and the employee is now visible on the Location and Driver Summary screen. Remember, it takes 24 hours for historical data to flow through. You can also remove inactive CDL drivers from the driver list. Click on the employee in the active driver list on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can select multiple drivers again by holding down the Control key. Click on the Remove button in the middle of the screen, and the employee is no longer visible on the Location and Driver Summary screen. It is your responsibility to ensure your active driver list is maintained and current. Now we'll move on to Location Summary. The Location Summary tab allows you to quickly view all drivers alphabetically for hours of service review for a 7-day period. The Location Summary is accessed by clicking on the Location Summary tab in the upper right side of your screen. Select your location and the date for the week back from 7-day period. Managers of drivers must maintain and monitor hours of service daily for accuracy. Failing to manage and correct inaccuracies can result in hours of service violations. Click on Generate List of Drivers, and you can also click on Excel to produce this in an Excel format. When you click on Generate List, the system will provide you a rolling 7-day work week based on the week back from date. The number of hours a driver is available to work tomorrow and the remaining hours are both displayed. Those highlighted in red are open violations. Those highlighted in yellow indicate a grid log is required, and restarts are marked by an asterisk. Violations are calculated once per day. Now, we've enhanced this option, and violations may now appear in the system as early as 6 a.m. A flag marks open items that have not been closed out. Clicking on the driver's daily times with violations or grid logs required will hyperlink you to the explanation tracking screen. And we'll talk more about the explanation tracking tool in a moment. But before moving on, Location Summary is clearly the kind of screen a manager should be reviewing daily. Now, on to another screen managers should be reviewing daily, the Driver Summary tab. Driver's Summary provides a week of Chronos punches for a selected driver. You can access the Driver's Summary tab by clicking on the Driver's Summary tab in the upper right side of your screen or clicking on the driver's name from the Location Summary screen. If accessing from the Driver's Summary tab, you will need to generate the information by selecting the location, driver, and the date for the week back from data point, and click on Generate the Report. The driver's hours are visible for the week selected. You have the ability to go back to the Location Summary screen by clicking Back to Location Summary. If you click on the Location Summary tab at the top of the screen, you'll lose your pre-selected location and date back from data. Just like on the Driver's Summary screen, restarts are flagged with an asterisk, violations are highlighted in red, and grid logs are in yellow. This screen will also display the 30-minute break as input in the handheld. A checkbox is provided to inform you that a driver actually drove a commercial motor vehicle. This is why one LAN ID per employee is so important. If the person driving is not logged into the handheld, their hours will not be tracked as DOT hours of service. Additionally, gate-in time is displayed. If the gate-in time displayed is later than the clock-out time, the system will use the clock-out time to calculate the 14-hour violation. A comments field is available by driver by day. This allows you to note any unusual activity. As you will see, these notes will transfer to the explanation tracking form. Also note the as of date and time. If you're running this report for a prior period of time, the system will tell you the information as of this date and time. Just like the location summary screen, clicking on the driver's daily hours that are highlighted will hyperlink you into the explanation tracking screen, which we'll get into now. The explanation tracking tab provides the manager or supervisor with the ability to document reasons for DOT concerns and provides corrective action and follow-up. Exceeding DOT hours of service regulations is equivalent to breaking the law. Therefore, DOT requires companies to manage violations. It is the company's policy to progressively discipline employees who exceed hours of service rules. This includes coaching, verbal or written warning, suspension, termination, or by following your local collective bargaining process. You can access explanation tracking by clicking on the explanation tracking tab in the upper right-hand side of your screen. Clicking the hyperlinked hours from the location summary screen and the driver summary screen will also access it. For locations on e-hours of service, you should use and generate your explanation report on the EHOS web portal. This form is available in the safety library for those locations using the paper process. If opening from the explanation tracking tab, enter the information you need to generate the report and click generate. This screen is only available for one specific day. If e-hours of service calculated a violation, the manager has the ability to track the violation and the reason for the violation and the corrective action that was administered. The system also tracks supervisor follow-up at the bottom of the form. Once the supervisor has selected the reason and corrective action, click on Save and print the form. The supervisor must print and sign the form along with the driver. The form must be retained in a local hours of service file for 6 months along with any grid log. Don't forget, failing to take corrective action, document, and filing is a violation. Corrective action needs to demonstrate the company's action to correct noncompliance. Providing only coaching for habitual offenses may not be enough. Within the explanation tracking form, you will be asked to document if there is more than one violation. You may recall the key hours of service violations covered in the Hours of Service Overview module. 10 hours off prior to shift. Not having 10 hours off or failure to punch are violations of DOT hours of service and require corrective action. It is not a DOT violation if the driver was in a non-driving position for the entire day. You will need to provide documentation of this compliance. Driver exceeded the 60-hour maximum weekly hours. This violation occurs when the driver has exceeded the 60 hours in 7 days. Exceeding limits, not tracking hours, failure to punch or be dispatched above allowed hours all require corrective action. Exceeded the 14-hour maximum daily. This is the 14-hour violation, which is calculated from punch in to gate in. As with exceeding maximum weekly limits, there are some exceptions. No violation would exist if the driver was in a non-driving position after the limit was reached. In other words, had cleared the gate in procedure and was in the office completing paperwork. This is not true for the 16-hour violations. In order to take the 16-hour exception, the driver must be released from work on or before the 16th hour. If the driver was in a non-driving position for the entire day, supporting documentation would need to be provided. System issues. This does not include failure to punch. So again, if there was a system issue, managers need to document what that system issue was. And failure to punch is not a system issue. That is driver's behavior that needs to be addressed by the manager. Driver exceeded the 11-hour maximum drive time. Not something to be expected normally within the S&D operations. Failure to take a break. If the break is not a minimum of 30 minutes or if the break is not taken within 8 hours of the last off-duty period, all require corrective action. Now, this may not be a violation if the driver was in a non-driving position for the entire day or if there were system issues. Once again, failure to enter lunch breaks or breaks in the handheld is a violation requiring corrective action. As we covered in the earlier module, all 30-minute breaks must be taken in the handheld. Entering a 30-minute break into Kronos does not feed into e-hours of service, so it will show as a violation. Once you've completed the explanation of reasons and/or corrective action, save the form and print it. The supervisor and driver must both sign the form, and the supervisor can then check off any open items within the follow-up section. Now, this will track within the report section. Supervisors should not close follow-up items unless all corrective actions have been taken. For instance, if the driver has not turned in his or her grid log, closing this in the system will not allow for any reminders to the supervisor. As mentioned previously, any notes entered into the driver's summary tab will transfer to the bottom of the explanation form under additional comments. Lastly, and most importantly, we're going to discuss the Reports tab. The Reports tab can be accessed by clicking on the Reports tab in the upper right side of your screen. Click on the Report drop-down to select the desired report. You will then need to enter the generating information: location, driver if applicable, begin date or end date, and status. The reports will generate for all violations only open or only close. And then click on Generate Report. The driver violation report provides a snapshot of needed explanation reports and grid logs for a given date and range by driver. Drivers are displayed for the date range given, and the date of violation is a hyperlink to the explanation report. Any fields displayed include grid log needed, missing daily punch, exceeded maximum weekly hours, less than 10 hours off, exceeded maximum daily hours, and failure to take a 30-minute break. Driver violation summary provides a rundown of needed explanation reports or paper grid logs. Drivers are displayed for the date range. It will display cumulative violations by driver for the date and range given. The report should be monitored daily by the driver's supervisor and weekly by the unit manager. The location violation summary provides a summary of violations by type and grid logs for a given data range. Location summary only is displayed for the date range given. It will show cumulative violations by location for the date range given. The report should be monitored daily by the driver supervisor, weekly by the unit manager, and on a period basis by the market director. The accountability summary recaps the various reports, their frequency, and the actions management must take. Daily, supervisors need to monitor the web portal, location summary, driver summary, and explanation tracking. Weekly, unit manager and driver supervisors need to monitor the web portal, location summary, driver summary, and explanation tracking. Also, follow the frontline coaching and leading parameters. Monthly, unit manager and market director need to follow the location leadership coaching and leading parameters. So basically, everyone being accountable is what makes a difference in the success of our organization and keeping our people safe. Which lead us to our next segment. To continue on the crucial nature of these topics, the significance of adhering to safety rules and regulations to the individual, the manager, and the general public, we want to stress the responsibility we all have to ask questions and raise concerns whenever compliance issues arise. You should report all violations of our values, our code of conduct, our policies, and of course the law to your manager or supervisor. You can also contact the Global Compliance and Ethics or the Law Department. We've also provided a completely confidential way of reporting using Speak Up. There can be no retaliation or negative impact of any kind for reporting these types of concerns. Bottom line, something's up, speak up. So now, let's discuss the HSE Resource Library. Here's where you can find a recap of all the rules and regulations for hours of service. The key documents available include the EDOT activation request, submitting a web ticket for EDOT, explanation report, and hours of service. Make sure to check out these helpful tools. You're almost to the finish line. Now for the final safety checkpoint to see how much you've retained from the module. First question, true or false? When using the administration screen on EDOT to add new drivers, historical data is updated immediately. The answer is false. It can take up to 24 hours for historical data to flow through the system. Next question. Both driver and location summary screens feature which? The answer is D. All are features for both screens. Question 3. True or false? A corrective action form must be retained on file for 6 months. The answer is true. It must be retained along with any grid logs. Finally, supervisors and unit managers need to monitor the following screens daily. The answer is E, none of the above. Only supervisors need to monitor these screens daily. Unit managers need to do so weekly. So that will do it for this module on hours of service, manager accountability. Remember, it is business critical that drivers comply with hours of service regulations and managers are accountable for ensuring compliance. Once again, we're counting on you to understand these important principles and lead your people effectively. We know you won't let us down. So stay tuned for more DOT modules here on Training on Demand. And until next time, thank you for your attention, stay safe, and in the zero zone.